Awesome. Okay. Well, how about we'll go ahead and get started. I want to let everyone know that I'm recording this, so that way for classmates that were unable to be here, we can share this with them. I always want to make sure everyone is aware of that. But thank you so much for being here this morning. Professor Carpenco and I are really excited to have our students who have gone through the process of searching for internships, having found them, and then participate in internship this last summer. So we're excited to have them talk about their experience. I want to mostly get out of the way and let the students talk, but I wanted to give Professor Carpenco, if you have anything that you wanted to share before we started with the panelists, if you wanted to say anything.
Just welcome, and yeah, thank you to all the panelists for agreeing to talk to students today. I think this will be very useful. Thank you.
And so what I'm going to ask the panelists to do is just if you could introduce yourself, so say your name, when you started, so did you start in 2019, 2018, if you started in the bridge program, if you started in the master's program, and then just where you did your internship. So name, which program, when you started, and where you interned. And so I'm going to try to go through the list and call people because doing it popcorn style with this many attendees can sometimes be challenging. So I'm going to go ahead and ask. And I'll start because I see Tyler first on my screen. So Tyler, if you wouldn't mind starting.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Tyler Imes. I am a second-year master's student. I started in the bridge program in the fall of 2018. And was that everything besides the internship thing?
And where you interned?
Yeah, so then this summer I did an internship at Amazon. I was specifically at Amazon Lab 126 in the connected devices org.
Awesome, thank you. How about Kate Luo?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Kate. I'm also in the bridge program. And last summer, I was interning in SBDIA.
Awesome, thank you. And Rachel?
Hello, let me fix my audio issue first. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Rachel. I joined the bridge program in 2019 and I interned at, as you can see, Cloudflare for the last summer.
Has the swag, nice, okay. And we'll go next with Radha.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Radha and I am a MSCS student. So I joined in 2019 and I have interned at Cyborg. So it's a startup in New York. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And Aishwarya?
Oh, I think you're muted. Aishwarya, I think you're muted.
Hello?
Oh, we can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry for that. Hi everyone, I'm Aishwarya. I'm a second year master student. I joined last year, like 2019. I interned at a online retailer called Poshmark this summer.
Thank you. And we'll go next with Iris. Thought I saw Iris. Maybe I didn't. We'll come back to you, Iris. How about, let's go next with Siddhartha.
Hey everybody, I'm Siddhartha. I am a part of the fall 2019 MSC's batch, and last summer I was interning at Credit Karma on their cloud infrastructure team, and I'm really excited to meet you all today.
Thank you. Tushar?
Hi everyone, I'm Tushar. So I joined the MSCS batch in 2019, and this summer I interned at Amazon.
Awesome, thank you. And Chopin?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you all. My name is Chopin. I'm an alumnus. I graduated in May. Yeah, I started my master's 2018, and I interned in 2019 summer with Arista Networks in SF.
Okay, and how about Daniel?
Hello, I'm a third year bridge student. I started in summer 2018, and this summer and last fall as well, I entered at a company called Scale in their machine learning team.
Awesome, thank you. And then I believe RT might be our last panelist that I haven't asked, but if you are another panelist out there after Arti, please speak up.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Aarti Parthiban. I'm a second year MSCS student. I interned at Amazon this summer.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any other panelists? Because there's a large list of people. I want to make sure I don't miss anyone. Okay, well, if I did, speak up at some point, please. So we'll go ahead and get started. So what Professor Karpenko and I thought we could do is start with a couple questions, but we really want this to be about all of the new students and allowing you to ask questions that you have about the process. So we'll turn it over to you, but we wanted to start with sort of giving our panelists an opportunity to ask or to answer a couple of questions. So we're wondering if you could start by telling us what websites and what sort of resources did you use to search for internships? Sort of the very basic question. So where did you start? So how about, let's go, we won't necessarily go for every question to every single panelist. So if you get skipped, that's, unless you have a really great answer and I skip you, please speak up. But otherwise, for time's sake, I wanna make sure that we get through most of the questions. But how about we'll start actually in reverse order, and we'll go with Arti. If you could tell us a little bit about how you found your internship, what sites you used and resources. And you're on mute.
Yeah, I made a list of companies that I wish I would do my internship. I maintained an Excel sheet and started applying on the company websites. And LinkedIn was another source. Yeah.
Great.
Those were the two sources.
Awesome. Okay. How about let's go to Siddhartha. How about you? What were the resources that you used?
Yeah, so for me as well, like I maintained like an Excel sheet where I was like tracking down all the companies I was applying to, and for websites, I applied mostly via LinkedIn, and there's like a new platform called Jumpstarts, which is gaining a lot of popularity nowadays. So I would definitely recommend everyone to check out Jumpstart as well, because a lot of companies have started shifting their application process, like the job postings to Jumpstart. So I definitely recommend everyone to check out Jumpstart. But these were pretty much like the primary sources of like, like tracking job applications, and when and all they were coming up, I was like applying them. So yeah.
Awesome. I hadn't heard of Jumpstart, so I'm going to make a list of what you all say, and I'll share it out after this session. So how about we'll go next to Chopin.
Yeah, for me it was, I guess I first started with Glassdoor, and then I saw that LinkedIn was better, so I switched to LinkedIn majorly. And yeah, it was majorly LinkedIn, majorly LinkedIn. And yeah, I also like got into Code 2040, so that helped me get access to companies over there through Code 2040's program. So LinkedIn, Code 2040, and yeah, that was mostly it.
Awesome, thank you. And for those of you who don't know, Code 2040 is an organization based here in the Bay Area that helps Latinx and Black students find internships and mentorship. So they're a really great programs. So if any of you are part of those communities, I encourage you to actually reach out, or you can reach out to me and I can connect you to Code 2040. How about Rachel? What were some of the resources that you used to find your internship?
To be honest, I didn't do a very good job of searching, even though I was using LinkedIn, and some of the platform they mentioned, the info. I think my video just cut off again. Anyway, anyway, the one actual useful resources was you, John, because you were sending out emails to people, be like, hey, here's internship, go apply. That was one of the more useful resources.
Oh, good. I did not pay anyone to say that, especially Rachel. So I just want to put that out there, but I'm glad that was helpful. How about, we'll go with one more and then we'll go to the next question. How about Tyler? What sort of resources did you use?
So aside from what everyone said, I'd probably say people, like Rachel said. So like trying to get recommendations, and I'm pretty sure a recommendation was the way I mean, I know it's the way I got my interview with Amazon. So just try to go to meetups, talk to people in the program about who they know, try to meet people. That's really, it's the old fashioned way with connections is the best way to do it, but it's still the best way to do it.
Cool. And I actually want to ask one more.
I want to say that I really agree with Tyler. Sorry to cut in, but that's exactly how I got my internship as well. I did a lot of like applying on LinkedIn, but you know what actually worked, because I never heard back from any of the, you know, maybe hundreds of applications that I submitted, but it's the ones that I go and talk to people that they can put a face on it. You know, I actually found my internship through the school's career fair, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then also, Daniel, did you do an internship at a startup? Maybe you can also, just to give a little bit of diversity, because I know that a lot of people did it at traditional companies, but I think some folks did it at startups.
Yes.
So I'm curious.
So I was exclusively looking at this site that's called Work at a Startup. They also had a career fair last summer. So that's how I found my internship for last fall, which turned out to be this summer as well. Work at a Startup has job postings for companies that were funded by like Y Combinator. So these are usually good startups, and that was a good filter for me, and had good experience with that. People were very responsive.
Awesome, thank you. So how about, let's go to the next question. So how about, what was your search like? How long did it take you to find your first position? So describing the actual process, so you've applied. How about, we'll start with Radha.
Yeah. So about the companies, like I also searched in Handshake and AngelList as well. So yeah, that too helped me. So for me, it took like a little while. So I started off it, I mean, like applying in September or October. So I mean, like initially, yeah, I was getting like hacker rank tests and all those. And then, yeah, I used to like, though, I mean, like sometimes I solved all the questions, but still I get a reject. So I mean, like it went on, and then like in March and April, I actually started getting interviews, and I did attend a few, but then due to COVID, like some got cancelled. I mean, like they did not schedule the final round. So then finally in May is what, like almost towards the end of my uh, first year, like I got this. And so I was also applying only in San Francisco Bay Area before. So like that, I did not like apply to many companies, you know, I mean, which are out of California. So I did miss like a few opportunities there. And then finally I started. So once the COVID started, I just like broadened my search, and I was searching for like even out of US, and then I mean like in US, but out of California. And then I found this a startup Cyborg. So it works on basically data compression and encryption. So that was like, so they gave me actually a assessment, like they asked me to build a file compressor in C, and then I finished that. And then they they called for an interview, and they asked me like how I did the project and a few questions on like C, like the technical questions. And then like within a week I got the offer. So
Awesome.
it was like almost towards the end of May is what I got an offer. So yeah, it was like a
Awesome,
pretty
thank you.
Yeah.
How about, same question for Tushar. So tell us a little bit about your process after you applied.
Yeah, so my process was slightly easier. Like, so we started in August, and I think it was in the second week of college that I started applying for internships. Like everybody mentioned, LinkedIn and Google and referrals. Those were the three primary sources that I used. And just to add to that, like Google has a lot of links available. Like if you just search for summer internships 2020 or 2021 or fall internships, whatever, it'll give you a lot of results, and those will take you to different websites from where you can again explore more. So that is something that is handy. But yeah, I applied and I got my first round from Amazon in the first week of September. And then that's when the process kickstarted, and then it took a couple of months for everything to go. There were 3 rounds. The first round was just like a debugging question, 7 questions in 20 minutes. Then the second round was the actual technical coding round, when I had to solve 2 questions in 70 minutes, followed by like a 15-minute behavioral. And then they had a third round, which was about how you would fit into the Amazon culture. So it was like a 2.5-hour behavioral round where they would actually kind of quiz you on your technical skills and the Amazon leadership principles, and if you actually read them, and if you know what they are, and if you can actually work with everybody in Amazon. Yeah, and then after that I had a 45-minute interview that took like 3 weeks to get scheduled, and after that they gave me an offer in like a week. So I got an offer in the first week of November.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And I think Aishwarya, how about we'll go with you next?
Yeah, so I started applying in the end of September or early October, and I applied for about 30 to 40 companies, and I got around the Hacker questions from 10 of them. So, and then for the company that I interned, once I finished the Hacker Rank, I got an interview scheduled and there was just a question on trees and also an overview of how I had solved the Hacker Rank question. And after that, I had 3 rounds of interviews. 1 was behavioral and 2 were coding rounds. And I got my offer within 2 weeks, early November. Yeah. I will just have one suggestion that like it's an ongoing process. You have to prepare and you have to apply at the same time. It's simultaneously. So the mistake that I did was with respect to Amazon, I wanted to be sure like I have done a fair amount of preparation and then apply. So I applied in I think November end, and by the time like they were almost had a lot of applications. So I first got a mail in December saying that I'll be getting a Hacker Rank questionnaire, the first initial round in January sometime, but then in January I got a mail that it has been already filled. So don't do that mistake. Please apply as soon as like when you start preparing, apply as well. It's a simultaneous process. You can never be fully prepared and then apply. That's never going to happen.
That's really good advice. Thank you. How about, so Daniel, you worked at a startup. So maybe what was your process like? Because that might have been a little bit different than a traditional company.
Yes, so the process, I guess, was different because there was no HR people reaching out to me. I usually had directly like engineers or some other people from the company. There was almost always a take-home exercise, something that they give me a week for it to work on. But then after that, it was, I guess, similar. I had one technical phone screen where I did a coding exercise and then talked about some of the projects that I worked on. And then I had an on-site that had one coding part, one technical part, and one non-technical part. Yes, so I did that on-site last summer. Yes, so for this summer, I already had the return offer.
I was going to mention if it was on-site, it must have been before March. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. What about other panelists who did internships at a startup? What was your process like? Because those, I think, vary probably the most. If anyone else had a startup experience that wants to share.
Would you mind if I chime in a little bit?
Yeah, you can chime in.
Yeah, I mean, Cloudflare, even though it's a public company, like the culture is pretty much like very startup-y like, because they just went public not too long ago in a sense. So I mean,
so what was your experience like?
But okay, well, let's see. Long story short, I didn't do a good job of applying. So the only reason I got this internship was because you sent an email about, hey, Cloudflare expanding the class sizes. I mean, before you send an email, I didn't even know they actually have an internship program. So back in April, they basically expanded their class sizes by 2x in a sense. And then I went and applied, and I looked at my contact list and be like, oh shit, I actually have connections at Cloudflare. So let's see if I can hook up to that person and be like, yo, I'm applying to Cloudflare. Would you mind like, putting me in a recommendation somewhere? And I think that helps a lot in a sense because your connections never hurts. Also, I want to be very clear. I want to clarify something. Like just because you have a recommendation or inside connection doesn't mean you will get it. It just means that you get noticed. Doesn't mean that you will get it. There's a difference. Anyway, I mean, for that process, because I think at the end they have more than 12,000 applicants. So they basically send out like a take-home challenge in a sense. So it depends on like what internship position you apply for. So if you were a product manager, you have to write like a project description and stuff. If you're doing system engineering, you have to write a ping program. And if you're doing like full stack, they give you an assignment of do A/B testing. So using the workers platform in a sense. So it was pretty straightforward. And unfortunately, there were a lot of code copying from what I can see in the GitHub activity. And I did try to emphasize to the recruiters, be like, hey, would you mind like look out for people who are like copying code and stuff? So that was definitely very different. And for the interview process, at least for the team that I work for video streaming, they didn't ask algorithm questions like a lot of the big companies. It's more like they ask you a lot of like practical questions that the team has already solved. And they just ask you like, okay, how would you solve this question if you were here a year ago in a sense? So let's like, for example, like I think I was working on the video streaming platform. So the question that they ask in an interview, it's like, let's say for example, they're not going to ask you to implement an algorithm to do something like do X. They wouldn't ask you, we want to implement like variable bit rates, adaptive bit rates. How would you implement that on the client side? On the server side, doesn't matter. So that's how the interview process went. It's very straightforward, and it wasn't a lot of leak coding. I must appreciate that. People who hard grind leak code would understand the pain of that, I guess. So I think that's my input for now. So
awesome,
so yeah, even for big companies, you can look for those who like recently like went public. They probably don't have a very elaborate scheme of asking you all these algorithm questions that you never get to use in your job, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome. How about Kate? I don't think Kate, well, I don't think I've asked you a question yet. So how about, what was your experience like?
I just like research the email and then to leave the outlines of I got the intern offer. So I actually applied as video on October 15, like after a month and a half, and I got a coding challenge. So, and after I finished the coding challenge, about 10 days, I got the interview invitation, but just something happens because like they told me they don't have any available slots in the San Francisco, and asked me if I'm willing to relocating to Austin. And then my interview was rescheduled again. And then until the January 15, I got the interview. So the interview is basically very similar to others person, just 3 rounds and 2 technical and 1 behavior. And then after I passed the interview, 6 days after, I got the offer. Yeah, basically like that.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask one more question. I'm going to ask it of our alumni. So I'm going to prepare you, Shopei, and then we'll open it up to the students. So you can ask all the questions that you have of our panelists. But Shopei, as an alumni, someone who can look back upon the completion of your degree, both internships and applying for full-time positions, I'm wondering what advice would you give to students who are just starting their master's, or even if they're in their second year of the master's degree? What sort of advice would you have?
Yeah, I guess someone said it already, like earlier, about using your connections, right? Or trying to, at least if you feel you don't have a network, try to build a network. I feel like that is possibly the most important thing. I mean, apart from, I mean, everything else we know, like do a lot of worthwhile projects, you know, that give you experience. Try to take classes that would point you in the path you would want to sort of specialize in. All that we know, but the power of a network, I think, is very important, especially for getting jobs anywhere, I guess, not just in America, but like anywhere. And and like even if you came, even if when you came here you didn't have a network, like you could actually build by going to meetups, attending conferences. Like when you do all that and you get to meet with, you know, engineers and recruiters one-on-one, it really does a lot compared with just applying, you know, I'm sitting at home and applying. So I would say it's important to like prioritize like going to meetups, attending conferences and things like that, like compared with just sitting at home and I think going to classes alone. Like sort of maybe have it as a priority and try to do that a lot. Because for me, when I was applying for internships, I didn't do any of that and just was applying a lot, and I applied to maybe over like, I don't know, over 100 companies definitely, and then got back a few interviews, maybe 5 or 10 or something. But when I was applying for full time, I changed that strategy and I didn't apply to more than 30 companies, and I got maybe like 8 to 10 interviews, because I wasn't just applying blindly, but I was mostly going to conferences and like trying to use the connections that I had. And even if I didn't have, I went to conferences to build them, and that was really useful for me. So yeah, I think that's like the major thing I would say.
Great, thank you. I want to actually make a comment about building a network. I know oftentimes new students, especially new international students who are coming to the US for the first time, or maybe currently, you know, being taught from their home country, you can always go on to LinkedIn and start connecting with USF alumni. So you do actually have a really large network already that you can begin connecting with. So I encourage you to use those sorts of resources. But I want to stop being that question asker, and I want to open it up to our students. So you're welcome to ask in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask, but please feel free to ask questions. And if you don't have any, I've got a whole list of other ones, so we can keep going.
Yeah, would you mind if expand on the networking part?
Shopee or me? Shopee?
Me, I haven't expand on that. So you mentioned how USF has a large network of alumni on LinkedIn. My one advice to students and people who try to connect people on LinkedIn, it's always include a message, and basically kind of like, just imagine this is co-email, like this is co-emailing. Like when you connect with people, always mention like commonalities, like, okay, why, like just because, you know, be like, oh, you both from the USF, that's not enough. You know, it's always better to include a message when you send the invitations, because when I see invitations without a message, I was like, okay, why are you adding me? Like, do I know you? I think people subconsciously would feel a bit eerie if they have no idea who you are, in a sense. So it's always better to include a message, be like, you know, hey, I'm the USF current student. I'm just trying to reach out and see, you know, job opportunity and stuff. You know, that's, you know, anything. It's better than just sending an invitation without any message attached to it. You know, it feels very weird. Let's put it this way. And on the other hand, I think Sophie was talking about like connection and stuff. For me, the connection was at the least like expected places. My background was like for business management, so I used to do a lot of accounting stuff back in the days, and my connect, even though now I basically switched industry to like computer like software engineering, my connection was actually back in the sales and marketing days. So the person that I have connections in Cloudflare, it's actually a salesperson in a sense. But even if, you know, that's a salesperson, not an engineer, that still helps you in terms of connections. So I just want to emphasize on like connection doesn't have to be, you know, the person doesn't have to be working at, you know, in your, let's say you want to be engineer. You don't have to have all the connections to be engineers. You know, your connections can be anyone as long as they're in a company. You know, they can put you into a referral for recommendation, no problem. So like that was like one of the like, for me, it's just surprising, you know, like connection comes in very different shades of forms. And in this case, you know, my previous experience actually helps me, even though it has nothing to do with engineering, I guess.
Awesome, thank you. So what sort of questions do folks have for our panelists? And again, you can ask in the chat or you can unmute yourself, whichever.
I guess before people ask questions really quickly, I just posted an event in the chat that people can register for. Even though you probably haven't heard about most of these companies, I assure you that they're very good. Companies like Ripple or LogDNA. So you can register by Monday, and then the event is next Thursday. So that's one way to network, I guess, during COVID.
Yeah, I've anything that you all are putting in the chat, I'm copying down and I'll send out to all the students. I really appreciate you sharing that.
So I want to add one thing about your resume, I think.
Okay.
I think a lot of times when you put stuff on the resume, I think Professor Oga mentioned that, you know, you could mention school projects in your resume. And on one hand, I agree with that to show that you actually completed these like milestones and stuff. On the other hand, you know, my manager was actually telling me that why I was like the person selected to be on the team was because I have a project I maintained for the past 4 years. So basically, like some companies, not necessarily all companies, some company looks for people who are committed to their project, not just like just school project one-off and like just never be seen again, I guess. But you know, at least for Cloudflare, like for my manager, he specifically mentioned how like it was a school project, but I maintained it for like the past 4 years, and they see that as a sign of commitment in the sense that, you know, you work on something, you're not just gonna abandon it immediately, in a sense. So if you want to work on a project and put it on a resume, start as soon as you can and try to just treat it like a baby. Just don't start it and abandon it. You know, keep it up to date. Show your commit logs on GitHub. That's gonna help you a lot. You know, like they go to GitHub, they look at my profile and be like, oh, this is a project. Oh, this has been 4 years ago. Oh, the last commit was last week. It's been going for 4 years. So it's a way better impression to the recruiters or the hiring manager when they see that you work on something for that long, as opposed to like something very novel and you just never touch it again, I think.
I think it depends on the company. I think it does depend on the company.
Yeah.
Did any of our other panelists get advice about Siddhartha?
Yeah, so I would like to just add a small thing that while building your resume, make sure that it's ATS parsable, because a lot of times when what happens is when you're applying and your resume is not like ATS parsable, you get rejected right there. So when you're building a resume, so what I mean by ATS parsable is like when you're applying, a lot of times, a lot of companies have like an automated tracking system where they like pre-screen the resumes. So a way to like make sure that your resume is ATS parsable is by like uploading a resume to like any job sites like Workday, or like a lot of companies are using like Greenhouse. So like when you're uploading it, you make sure that your name, like your first name, last name, gets filled in like the right blocks. So like if there's like a block next to like the first name, make sure like when you upload the resume, it automatically fills like the fields, right? So like when you do that, make sure like the fields get like filled correctly. So I would say like the first thing that you might want to do is make sure that your resume is like ATS parsable. Yeah.
That's great. Does anyone else have any other resume tips that they've received since they started their search?
So just to add to that, like what I did was I would get a lot of feedback on my resume. I would like reach out to my professors and you know, the faculty at USF or whoever I'm working with to get some feedback on the resume, because they actually know how you can improve the resume and how you, like Siddhartha mentioned, make it more ATS possible. So there's just keep working on it all the time. It's not like a one-step process. It's continuous improvement. So yeah, just keep at it, I guess, and reach out to people.
That's a really good point, that your resume should be a dynamic document. It shouldn't be this, you do it once and it's going to stay the same for the rest of your life. It should be updated regularly. So I don't see any questions coming in, so I can ask a question that is on our list. Actually, I want to, Professor Karpenko, I don't want to hog all the questions, so if there's any questions, feel free to jump in, but I also can ask more, so I want to turn it over to you real quickly. Oh, okay.
My question is from bridge students. I just don't know how you got prepared, like when you started in summer and then you applied in, I don't know, November or sometime around November. How did you prepare in this short amount of time, and to like build your resume and like portfolio? Because for the bridge students, most of us have different backgrounds, and maybe we don't have like much coding experience. So for the first year, if you want to like get an internship in our first year, I just don't know how can we get prepared for the like internship deadlines. That's it.
Bridge panelists? Thank you.
I would say, well, the way that it worked for me, the first year I worked at a different company called MissionBit. I got, the way I found out about it was from emails from John. And it's a, it was an CS education company for underserved students in the Bay Area. And so it didn't require like the most in-depth CS knowledge to be able to teach them. It was pretty basic stuff. So like, but the main message is like, be open to anything in that first year. I think after your bridge year, I think after your first year in the master's program, that's when you should be really looking at the companies that that are, you know, more that are a lot more selective in the hiring process. In the first year, you just want to get something on your resume. That's the strategy I used. I know maybe everybody didn't use that strategy, but I feel like it worked for me, just to be really open the first year and then be selective the second year.
Awesome, thank you, Tyler. What about any of our other bridge students? What was the method that you used?
Yeah, I just want to say, as a bridge student, you may don't have too many projects, but I think you need to learn one training framework, like maybe we add Spring Boot or Vue, just like something like the startup companies can use. Because like when I got the interview from the startup, they always ask me about the React project on my resume. And then also maybe some HR, they will also we ask to really know the React, but I just make a very simple one-page program. But I think this project bring me a lot of startups interview, so I can practice, even though at the end I cannot get the offer or something, but it will build up and then lead you to a much better companies or much better chance.
Awesome, thank you.
Just to follow up on this, I think that's a great suggestion, and I think what I ultimately recommend, Firoza, is just maybe doing some kind of side project, even if it's a small side project. And just like Kate said, learning something new, some technology that's in demand. If you can do it, that would be wonderful. And also later on, after we're done with the main session, I'll talk a bit about the alternative to the internship. For bridge students, there's an alternative. They can take a summer project class and get some very similar experience. So I'll talk about this specifically with bridge students, maybe after we're done with the main session. So people who are bridge can stay.
Awesome. So we do have one question, but I wanted to make sure that Daniel or Rachel, if you wanted to add any sort of comments about what you did as bridge students in your first year on your either resume or just in the application process to help.
Yeah, so I agree with what was said regarding the projects. I think that's pretty much the best way you you can like stand out So I would really emphasize that and make sure it's visible in your resume. I think I had that, the second section that had projects, and it ended up taking like 40% of my resume, and I think that helped. Yeah, and then it's I think for especially for bridge students, it's like a little bit of a numbers game. So you just have to apply to a lot of places and embrace the fact that most of the people are not going to respond, and or like you're not going to hear from them, and that's normal. That's okay.
Awesome. I mentioned, or I didn't mention Bill. I see Bill is in here too. So Bill, if you want to add any comments, please feel free to jump in and be a part of the panel. We did have a question. So could the panelists tell us a little bit?
Sorry. I want to add on something. I don't know what's a good time to interject. Yeah. So to the question of what should first year student do when they don't have a good resume, like Professor Olga said, school projects or side project, that is your best bet. You know, like in my case, it was a bit different since, I mean, at least for me, when I applied for the Cloudflare internship, I put my projects on the top of my resume because I didn't have any other good experience, I guess. Just want to show that I have all these maintained for long time projects and all these technologies that is relevant in a sense, just to kind of like boost my resume in a sense. But if you don't have a project that you work on for very long, or you don't have a side project, definitely start now or soon. Especially, you have so many resources online nowadays that you can learn different technologies. Java, it's kind of like getting you into the door, getting you to know how to program in an object-oriented way. But if you have side projects, you could totally start a React one. You can start doing React Native for mobile development. You can start doing maybe some vendors technology, like let's say for Google, you can say that, oh, I use Firebase to do something, or let's say you want to go work for Cloudflare. Okay, go use Cloudflare's workers, go use Cloudflare's all these wonderful developer tools. You can show people, be like, I have a very up-to-date skill set in your projects. So I think that's what Professor Olga was referring to. It's like if you don't have a very good past experience, use projects to your best advantage. Basically, just to show that you have the up-to-date skill set. You're not stuck in the old days where you basically just know one skill and that's it for the rest of your life, in a sense.
Awesome, thank you. So we have two questions that have come in, so I want to make sure we get to those. So this is from Keita. Could you tell us about salary, like the average salary, what salary negotiation was like? So whichever of you had an interesting experience that you want to share, how about you can just chime in, or I can ask you.
I can jump in.
Okay.
I would say that there's no reason not to negotiate, because once you go through the interview process, they already invested in you. And I think it's actually good practice, because especially it's not as necessary for internship, but once you graduate, the starting salary is like a starting point, and it's not as easy to like move from there. So you can practice, be reasonable, and don't be afraid. I guess I had this like social block where I felt like if I ask for more, that I'm just like not being modest and I'm just asking for too much. But I think in America, no one's gonna think you're asking for too much if you just if you try to negotiate. I think they're gonna appreciate it on the other hand and be like, well, this person values their time. So I would encourage everyone, take it as an exercise. And even if it's like very minor, for the purpose of doing it, I would say like negotiate.
So I see a couple of panelists smiling. So if you want to chime in, you're more than welcome to.
He's right. It's hard to take that advice, but he's right. it's a lot easier to just sign something and say, I'm not going to bother them and everything, but you need to look out for yourself, because the thing that I totally agree with is that the salary is the starting point. And like he said, it's not easy to move up from there. So like where you start at makes a big difference, because that next step could be to the step, if you had negotiated, that you could have started at in the first place. So it's a big deal.
Maybe, so I can actually answer Kate's question about salaries, because it may be a bit awkward for panelists to say, okay, this is how much I earned, right? But I, because I teach the practicum, I see job offer letters, I see the range of salaries. So maybe I can just mention some numbers if you think, John, that's okay?
Yeah, of course. It's great.
Yeah, so it varies. The range is large. So it can be as low as 20, 25, and as high as 70 per hour. So typically you work 40 hours a week in the summer. And if you want to continue, for example, in the fall, you would work 20 hours a week. So a typical summer internship is 40 hours a week. So per hour, you can get between 20 something to $70 per hour. On average though, I see 30, 40, 45, 30 to 45 range probably was most common from what I've seen. So some of you may say, oh, I got less. Some of them may think, oh, I got more. So it varies. And of course, companies could also give a relocation money, right? There could be some extra funding. It depends. On the other hand, there were some students who did internships as volunteers. There were always a couple of students who would choose to do it for the experience. Or maybe sometimes they volunteer in the summer, then they get hired in the fall. So that also happens. We typically don't recommend it. We think that you should get paid, but this is the range. And if anybody sort of wants to chime in and say something different, please do so, but that's the range I've seen. It's quite a large range.
I appreciate you sharing that, because sometimes I know, especially in the United States, talking about your salary can be an awkward or uncomfortable conversation. So I appreciate you sharing sort of the average.
Yeah, on average, I saw 30 to 45 hours, sorry, $30 to $45 per hour, but it can be less. It can be also significantly more, up to $70 per hour. It varies. It depends on the company also.
So there's a really great question from Olga, the student, who asked, says, I know that lockdown is a new thing, but do you have any advice on how to grow your network if there's not regular meetups or conferences? So panelists, what are you doing right now to maintain or to continue building your network?
Check up on your old connections, see how they're doing. That's just keep up with the old connections. If you want to expand your connections, it's getting a bit difficult. I think it's one of those good age-old questions. When you have some connection, it's easier to expand on top of that. But if you're starting afresh with, like, let's say you have like very little new connections, I think one of those virtual hiring events is going to be great. Or you're going to go to Grace Hopper conference. I think this year they went virtual. That would be a great opportunity to expand your network as well, I think.
That's a great point, actually. So both Grace Hopper and Tapia, two really large conferences, are virtual this year. And even though they're virtual, the benefit is they're actually really affordable. So it's $150 to attend Tapia, and I think $199 to attend Grace Hopper. We do have scholarships to attend, which we already gave out for this year, but definitely all of you will be eligible for this next year. Sorry, I just wanted to try and make that was a really great point. But what else? What are other folks doing?
Yeah, so I think also that even though the world has gone virtual, right, the world did not stop moving. So that means that most things just mostly went from in-person to virtual. So they're actually virtual meetups. Obviously, conferences and hiring events are now virtual. Like I remember a few months ago, I was attending some online meetups, right, when COVID had started. And I actually met, funny enough, because I'll be moving to another city, and I met somebody in my company in the same city via the virtual meetup, and like that's already one connection I have when I get there, right? So, and I met a couple more people. I met like 2-3 people from other companies that, honestly, if I was looking for a job they could have referred me, you know, because I just went for a series of online meetups. So everything hasn't, the world hasn't come to a halt, right? Like things are still happening. So I think just kind of make the mental shift to look for virtual stuff now. Be like, oh, where are the online meetups? Where are the, you know, just try to search and then start attending those things. It might be via Zoom, but if you go to an online meetup, you know, let's say via Zoom, right? First week, second week, try to be active, try to, you know, chime in and talk and all that. And from there, you get to meet people. And those people, if it's tech meetups, they're people in industry, right? Those people would be your connections, would be like a starting point. Get their LinkedIn, start a conversation. And in 2 weeks, you could actually ask them for a referral. And I was also going to say that don't be scared. Like, I guess it's always that mindset where we're like, asking for a referral, it might be like I'm bugging them, right? But the honest truth is that like they lose nothing referring you. And in fact, they actually gain something referring you. So like it's theirs to gain, and you know they have nothing to lose, you know, referring anybody. So like they don't have to have known you for 10 years or 5 years or 3 months. Someone could have literally meet you in one day and refer you, because people get paid for referring actually if you get hired. So like you lose nothing, you know, asking for a referral. So just show up in online meetings, try to find online meetups and just be active, and then from there try to build your own connections. I guess that's what I would say.
That's really great advice. I want to actually synthesize 2 points that have been made. One is don't be afraid to reach out and try to make that connection. Remember that they, like you at one point, also had to network. So hopefully if they're nice people, they remember what that experience was like. And then earlier someone said, make sure when you do, like if you're using LinkedIn, actually send a message too to explain how you're going to be newly connected. Like we're both USF students, or you're an alumni, I'm a current student. But I think that's a really good point is, you know, don't be afraid, be fearless and reaching out. It might be hard at first, but you'll get used to it. Any other comments on this question?
Could I just chime in actually, John, as well?
Sure, of course.
I completely, of course, agree with Chopin's advice. Thank you. And I also want to mention something small that people may not think about, but you should also network with your classmates. This is the most obvious, easy thing you can do. And that includes participating during the lecture, participating in small group exercises, being active. So, you know, those people also have connections, and some of them will get internships and they can also refer you. And this is the easiest resource. That's the easiest thing to do. And does not mean, now that we're remote, does not mean you cannot talk to other folks. So just be active. Well, now, of course, things are a bit different, but still, you can absolutely network with your professors and with your classmates. We hope to have some event with an alums as well. So today, for example, Chopin is visiting, right? So we'll hopefully have more events where alumni can get involved. And I just want to tell you that, I guess several years ago, I had a TA who now graduated, who is now in Cisco. And yeah, the way he got his first job is essentially he was a CS tutor. You guys know about CS Tutoring Center. So he was helping a lot of undergraduate students, incredibly helpful, very, very strong academically, very friendly. So he established great friendships with many undergraduate students. And when one of the undergraduate students got a job, he immediately referred that student. So that's how he got his first job.
I just want to like emphasize, you know, make sure you include a message on LinkedIn connection. If the other person is your current classmate, then I think you already know each other, no problem. But I have quite a few people trying to invite me to connect on LinkedIn while I was interning at Cloudflare. The ones that include a message, I usually, you know, connect with them and message them about, you know, about things like Cloudflare. But those that who don't include the message, I'm just basically like, why are you adding me? That's my first question. Right? I know you want to connect, but it seems pretty low effort, like no effort at all. If you're just trying to connect with people without like sending a message. That's something I want to very emphasize. It's basically like cold call and cold email. You want to you want to cold email. You don't want a cold message. And you know, the cold part is it's important because you have to include a message. But if you don't, it's almost like a spam. Let's put it this way.
So we're about 2 minutes till 10 a.m. So I want to be respectful of all of your time. And I think a couple of our panelists might have big data that's starting in 4 minutes ago. And so I wanted to make sure that we allow Professor Karpenko to talk a little bit about the summer project for Bridge students, because for Bridge students, if you don't find an internship, we do have an alternative that I think is actually a really good option for students. So for master students, you're welcome to stick around and listen to this. But if you're not interested and you need to get off to class, I totally understand that. And if our panelists want to stick around and maybe answer more questions, fantastic. If you can't, I want to say thank you so much for joining us this morning. And if I get questions, I will forward them to our panelists. So students, if you had a question that you just didn't get to ask, please feel free to email it to me and I'll share it with our panelists. I encourage you also to maybe LinkedIn with our panelists after this session or connect however you prefer. But I did want to turn it over to Professor Karpenko to talk a little bit about the summer project course for Bridge students.
Right, and so this is only available to Bridge students. So keep it in mind, John, if you could allow me to share my screen, that would be helpful. Thank you so much.
Of course, I can.
In the meantime, if anybody has last minute questions on chat, please go ahead, just general questions.
You should have screen sharing capabilities. Awesome.
Okay, and maybe while I'm talking about this, if anybody has any last minute questions, you can send them to chat and John could reply via chat. Does that sound okay? Awesome. All right, guys, Bridge students, for you, there are two options. In the summer, in the first summer, you can either do an internship or you can take the so-called summer project class. And it's a really great experience. It's taught by one of the alumni from industry, Mario Lim. He's from a company called OpenRise, where he's an architect. And the projects are pitched typically by either some other developers from companies, maybe our alumni can pitch something, or they could be pitched by professors. There are many types of projects. For example, this summer, Mario told me there were projects on web and mobile development. There's a game, there's a project that uses data, natural language processing, microservices. So there's a large range of projects to pick from. And typically you're guided by the developer or professor who pitched the project. You're not being paid, so that's a disadvantage, but you're getting valuable experience. So in terms of payment, of course, internship is better, but otherwise this class, we're confident will provide comparable experience. So just a couple of projects that were done this summer that I wanted to mention. So one was basically where students designed sort of a trivia game where students, we could set up a game and start a game. It could be different competitors. What made it maybe interesting is the tools that students use. They created in the cloud and used various cloud tools, SQL, DB, and famous framework, right, React.js for the front end. So immediately you can see what kind of tools students were able to put on the resume after this project. So this one worked out really well. It was sponsored by John Rajoy, which is an alum, and he's currently at Credit Karma, but that was his personal project. And the second project I just wanted to mention, there were several, but the second one that I think was particularly strong also was what's done for this company called OpenRise. This is where, again, Mario Lim is from. And what they have done is they basically, the idea was to replace the company's big data engine with Spark. Some of you may know that Spark is an analytics engine for big data processing. So these guys also, apart from Spark, used microservices, which is again something that's used a lot in industry, and a lot of bunch of other useful skills. So this is just a sample of a couple of projects that people have done. There were more. And if you're curious, I could get you more information about this class, but definitely consider that as an option. And the learning outcomes of this class are pretty much the same as of the internship. Getting practical experience, building your resume, getting good project on your resume, learning some tools that are currently used in industry. Questions? That's all I have to say. Any questions from Bridge students? So this is only available to first year Bridge students. Okay, guys.
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Yeah, I don't see any questions. So if you guys have any questions, you can always email John and I, and we can forward them to the panelists so we can answer them. And thank you so much to all the panelists again.
Oh yeah, I think this question is more specific for you, I guess, Professor Roca. I'm not sure if my manager got back to you about sponsoring projects. Did he reach back out to you, or?
No, I think I don't think they were able to sponsor. Yeah, but you know, that's okay. People are busy, and that's fine. Maybe we'll try and approach them next time.
Okay.
It was also a bit of a short notice this time, so maybe next time.
Maybe next year they will do it, you know, because it was quite a short notice for them as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A quick question. I think last summer, like the Bridge student do a lot of like projects. Is there happens a possibility we can share the demo video or something like that?
You should ask your sponsor. So the project, so the code and everything belongs to the sponsor. In the project classes, that's true for the master's project, that's true for the Bridge project class. So just talk to your sponsor and see if they're okay with it.
Okay, I see.
It's completely up to your sponsor, project sponsor.
If they are okay with you sharing and you wanted to share out, you're always welcome to provide that information to me, and I can always send it out to all the students. I'm happy to do that for you. And speaking of that, I have been noting down the different resources that our panelists mentioned. So I will go ahead and share that out with all of you. So you'll all get that information later today. And I'll also share out the video of this in case you want to go back and watch this again, or if your classmates were unable to watch this. But to our panelists, thank you so much for participating. We really appreciate it. To our students, thank you for participating. We really appreciate it. And be on the lookout for more opportunities to engage. And next Tuesday, we'll have our next CS Research Seminar, and I will, of course, send you a reminder about that. But I hope you all have a wonderful Thursday, for those of you that it's still Thursday, and I'll hope to see you all soon. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are.
For those who stay until the end, feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. It was just kind of like a filter and see who stayed behind, I guess. Like I can offer some help over, you know. I mean, like I think my strategy is, you know, trying to apply companies that just went public recently. Basically, they have a lot more money, you know, fresh cash from the investors. They usually pays more, and they usually don't have a very elaborate scheme of hiring. So that would be easier to apply for, I think.
So all the good secret tips, email or message Rachel on LinkedIn. Well, have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you all soon. Take care.
Right. Take care.
Bye.